Well, you said it yourself, Will. Antakya is a ghost town today. You know, I was here in February just after those earthquakes, and I have to say the city doesn't look particularly different to how it was then. Rubble still lines the streets. Reconstruction certainly hasn't begun, and life here is nowhere near normal. It really is a ghost town. The only place that has a hub of activity are locations like this. These are voting stations in temporary containers where people can come and cast their ballot today. Some of the people we've been talking to live in tents in Antakya. Others, though, have travelled in, often from very far away, to cast their ballot in this election because they consider it to be essential for Turkey, for Turkey's democracy. This is a country where there is normally very high turnout in elections. In this city, something like 89% of people voted in the elections of 2018. And I spoke to a woman a short while ago, and from her we really got a sense of the emotion of today. She said, look, she nearly died in the earthquake. It took hours for people to rescue her. She now lives about a 9-hour drive away in the city of Konya. And she interestingly also said that what happened to her during the quake and the response to the quake has affected how she's chosen to vote today. She didn't tell us who she's voting for, and that's obviously just one person, but it is perhaps indicative of the anger here and the emotion on this really crucial voting day in Turkey.
Yeah, Nadia, with the city still needing to be rebuilt, it raises a question of if that changes how people see their vision for the country in the future. Any idea what the quakes, how it impacts voters' opinions?
Well, what I can tell you is that the campaigning by President Erdogan and his opponent Kemal Kilicdaroglu has been rather different here in the south. You know, President Erdogan has said, we will rebuild these regions, these earthquake zones, within 1 year. Now, Kilicdaroglu hasn't given a timeline for that. He's instead said, actually what we need to do is prioritise safe reconstruction of buildings. Now, that obviously a reference to the fact that since the earthquake, it's emerged that thousands of buildings were built in this region, even though authorities knew they weren't safe. So that clearly is an issue here in the south. But it's important to emphasise that in this city in particular, Antakya, Erdogan won by a large margin in the last election. He won 56% of the vote here. So the opposition's been campaigning hard. Kilicdaroglu has been here several times. But of course, we'll have to wait and see when the polls close tonight whether he's done enough to capitalise on the anger here to win the city of Antakya and to win elsewhere in the country as well.
Yeah, the earthquake response certainly a big issue. Nationally, there are many other concerns as well, aren't there? Tell us a little bit about those.
I mean, huge concerns nationally, Will. The economy is one, to borrow a phrase from American politics. It's the economy, stupid. Turkey's inflation rate last year sat at a whopping 85%. That's according to official sources, but the opposition say that figure is actually likely far higher. The Turkish lira has lost 60% of its value against the US dollar, and many Turks simply can't afford to live their lives in a normal way. They can't afford to buy food. They can't afford to, it's very expensive for them to heat their houses. And that's an issue that Kemal Kilicdaroglu has tried to gain a bit of ground on in this election. He carried out a little bit of a publicity stunt where he chose not to pay his own electricity bills to make a point as to how expensive they were. That meant the power went off in his building. So he's really trying to say in this election, look, I am a man of the people. I know what it's like to suffer like other Turks. His videos on social media that have been broadcast during this campaign are often done from inside his kitchen. He has sort of shopping bags on the table. It's very informal. It's very relaxed. That is sharp contrast to President Erdogan, a real sort of populist, charismatic figure who's been speaking in front of big crowds. So two very different visions for Turkey today, two very different leaders, and according to the polls, the race is going to be extremely close indeed. So we'll be watching closely, and we'll see what happens tonight.
All right, Nadia, thank you very much. Nadia Massih reporting from Antakya.